This is Viterbi Voices.
Coming to you from the University of Southern California, Viterbi School of Engineering.
We're here to give you the inside scoop about research, classes, student life, and so much more.
All of these shared from our students, faculty, and other members of our USC community.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Viterbi Voices. As usual, I am one of your co-hosts. My name is Paul Ledesma, Executive Director of Undergraduate Admission here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
And hi, everyone. My name is Emily Powis, and I'm a senior studying biomedical engineering.
That's the last time you're ever introducing yourself, Emily.
On the podcast.
On the podcast. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, not in life. Yes, absolutely. On the podcast. This is your last episode.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of surreal, honestly, like to go all this way with the podcast, but I'm excited for the future.
It's very, very, very cool. And congratulations on getting all the way through this year. Congratulations on graduating and getting out of here and doing your bigger and better things. We'll talk about that in a minute. But this is our last episode of the year. Just right off the top, we should say, we will not have episodes for a little while. We're going to take a kind of a hiatus for a little while this summer. Don't know when we're going to come back. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well, but don't expect weekly updates from this feed for a little while at least, because we're wrapping up the academic year. We're wrapping up Emily's tenure as host. And as tradition, whenever we have this last episode, this is kind of what we call the host handoff, because this is where we get to introduce the new co-host of Viterbi Voices, the podcast for the 22-23 academic year, at least, if not maybe a little bit longer. Introduce yourself, new co-host.
Yeah, hi, everyone. My name is Maya Nguyen-Schwander. I'm currently a sophomore studying industrial and systems engineering, and I will be the new podcast co-host.
Very cool, Maya. So why don't you tell everyone a little bit more about yourself, where you're from and, stuff that you do. I mean, we know Emily likes to rock climb. We know Emily likes to go outdoors, yada, yada, yada. We get all that stuff, but let's hear about your life. What are we going to be talking about with you a lot?
Yeah, I'm originally from Hudson, Wisconsin, so it was quite the shift coming to Los Angeles, but I absolutely love living here. Like Emily, I also love getting outside, just exploring the area. And as far as with school, I really am interested in healthcare and the healthcare applications of industrial and systems engineering. So this upcoming summer, I'll be working at a medical device company doing operations. And I also do research that is interdisciplinary in nature. So it's actually with a social work team as well as an engineering team. So I really like to find ways to add different things into my engineering education. And I think an overarching theme I'm interested in, and if you've heard my podcast over this past year, has been business and its applications within engineering. So how can we pursue entrepreneurship or study business just within like our math and science and engineering classes?
Awesome. Very, very cool. So Emily, this is your kind of final episode. While we want to get to know Maya a little better, we want to make sure that this is your kind of final words on the podcast. Before we get into anything you may want to talk about, I just want to thank you for all the work that you've done. A lot of people, come up to me, especially over the last couple of weeks, and talk about the podcast. Parents talk about the podcast. We have a lot of parent listeners out there, and just how thankful they are. And I'm the first one to say, like, I do very little. I show up to scheduled meet. You book me for Zoom calls. We record and I walk away, and then you guys end up doing a lot of work behind the scenes producing all this. I don't think a lot of people understand how much effort goes into this. And I know you have a really strong team of students behind you as well, that do great work. But I will say that none of that gets done without your leadership and without your guidance in making sure that we got this schedule. I mean, I know you're managing the schedule, you're helping people edit things, you're helping people, quality control, and you've done a fully, just perfectly executed podcast that I think even some professionals can't pull off. So thank you so much for everything that you've done. Did you give yourself a count how many episodes you did?
Oh, I have not done a count. I could probably use the episode tracker to do that. But yeah, it's just kind of crazy. I I just want to thank you. Like I never would have seen myself in a podcast role if it weren't for like last year, like a little bit before this time, Paul was like, "What do you think about being a podcast host?" And I was like, "What?" Like I don't think I could do that. We had a long conversation, and it was nice to talk to the last host, Audrey, about like her experience. And I felt like I was going to try my best and see what happens. And it's a really unique experience. I like didn't expect to add to my college career. And then, yeah, my team was just really great. I was really expecting like to have a lot of like hiccups in the schedule, like people getting things in late, but it was really easy to like manage everything. I just like, we were really upfront about deadlines and stuff. And the only time we ever like had a podcast like hiccup was when someone like totally lost their computer to like water damage, which is like not at all their fault. So yeah, it was really smooth team, and I'm really grateful for everyone I worked with. And I'm super glad that like a really strong member from my team, Maya, is going to be taking it forward.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting. Maya, are you a big podcast listener?
I am a big podcast listener, especially over COVID. That was something that I picked up and just, I guess, have never put back down.
Okay. And what are some of your favorites? What's your go-to? What do you listen to a lot of?
Oh man, I've been trying to alternate a little bit lately, but like my pride and joy is I went through all the TED Radio hours with like Guy Raz and now Manoush.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that was my COVID time. So definitely TED Radio Hour is my favorite, but I've been enjoying some of Brené Brown stuff lately. So like the Dare to Lead podcast, I think that's another really good one.
Okay. Awesome. Very cool. And Emily, now, do you have a different perspective on podcasts now that you've been doing this for so long? Like, I know that there's certain things that you will listen to, but what are your thoughts on podcasts, and where do you see podcasts kind of going in the future?
Well, I think the first thing is like when I listen to podcasts, especially listening to ones like TED Radio Hour, or sorry, not TED Radio Hour, like Radio Lab, I was like, there's just no way like someone normal like me could create a podcast. Like Radio Lab is so well done and so like edited and like perfectly seams together, but that's
Right.
not like what all podcasts are. And it's really easy to just like throw together a podcast if you wanted to. So I think it was really great, like learning as part of the team, and then like to managing it, it just ended up being like a big like organizational thing and just having to keep track of like 15 different people and their progress. And now I have lots of friends like asking me like they want to create their own personal podcast and like how to get started with that. And I think it's totally doable to create a personal podcast that's like about your life or like about your friends' lives. And I think it could be like really impactful depending on like how you spin those conversations. Cause like anyone can have conversations like these over Zoom. It's not overly difficult, and you don't even need like a professional mic if you don't have one.
Although they do sound pretty good. They do sound pretty good though.
They do sound good. But yeah, it's a very accessible medium, which is really cool to be a part of.
Awesome. So Emily, what is your best advice to Maya as she goes into this role as being kind of, I mean, there's kind of two roles to it, right? There's the idea of co-hosting, but there's also the idea of managing the production schedule. So what advice do you have for Maya as she takes this on?
Yeah, I think co-hosting will be pretty natural for you. I think you'll be able to fit into the role really easily. You just have to be yourself. But the management side, I think like it helped me to like schedule dedicated times where I would reach out to people. And for me, I just put all my podcast stuff on the day we do our intro and outros. So I like after this will ends, I'll like follow up with people, see how they're doing. But yeah, I think also in the beginning, I was a bit overbearing. I would text everyone every week, like, how's your podcast going? And I think that was like a little bit too much because people obviously weren't thinking about their podcast due at the end of the semester. So I like ended up like letting go a little bit and just checking in more like on a monthly basis because I realized like I could trust my team really well to get the podcast done.
Yeah, you definitely got them there. And Maya, what types of things do you want to know from Emily? Like, what are your biggest concerns? Or you want to know from us about like what's going to happen over the next year or so?
Yeah, fantastic question. I will say, like everything Emily's talking about, like from the other side of it, she has created such a well-oiled machine. Like it's so clear what we have to do and what we have to do by when. So I think that like as far as the management side, like it looks like she set like a really fantastic example.
Yeah.
The question I would have for you two would be, what is something, I guess more content wise on the podcast? Like what is some like podcast you've always wanted to make or a type that you've never been able to?
Well, I feel like we've tried around with like the informal interview style, or not even an interview, but like the informal ones, which I really like. But I think sometimes it's difficult to like arrange, and people get nervous about them because it doesn't have like a defined like arch in the conversation. But I think it'd be really cool to do something more like that, because think it gives a really authentic USC perspective. And we did some successful ones, but they took more effort than the actual planned interviews, which was odd and interesting.
There was years ago we did a number of I kind of a shorthand for it was like reporter on the street type podcasts, and I would love to see more of those types. I have a few in mind that I think are some pretty good in-person events. Now that we're going back to in-person events, I think it's a good idea to capitalize on that. And for example, if you go back and listen, there's one where we did of like Parents Weekend, and we just kind of set up a little table off to the side in the middle of the Parents Weekend, like breakfast. And I just grabbed parents that I knew and said, hey, can you hop on these mics and start answering a few questions? And it's cool because like there's background noise of like the breakfast and the party going on. And then parents would just talk about their experiences, about what, the admission process was like, everything else. All of those things are really cool. They just make more editing. Because I think what we do really well is like the secret to our podcast is minimal editing. we get mics on and we talk and then we put it out. But like that would have you cut together like 6 or 7 conversations. I think that would be really cool. The other thing that would be really cool is, because we did it in the past as well, is you walk around with like a mobile mic and you go to like the career fair and you talk to students about what companies are talking to and what it's like and what it's going like that day. Like I would love to see that. We do have a mobile recorder somewhere. I don't know where it ended up being, but we do have a mobile recorder that we can do that with. And I love those ideas. I mean, imagine setting up right on the Epstein Plaza and just like have a little like, come talk to us about your favorite food. And like, you just get a bunch of people like, hi, I'm John, I'm from whatever. And this, whatever, you just kind of cut that together and see like, it'd be kind of fun to do those types of things.
I agree. Yeah, I think that'd be super cool.
Both fantastic ideas. And that was certainly something I was thinking of myself. Like I've had a lot of friends who are just like, oh, like you're on this podcast. Like, that's cool. I want to be on this podcast too. I think Viterbi, it would be really cool if we included like just little tidbits of people's like authentic life, like what they're up to, like what they're interested in. Because everyone is so interesting.
Totally. And I think that we've got a nice balance. I mean, I think that we do need to, sorry, my dog is fighting with my cat. There's we do have a nice balance of like life in the Viterbi school, student life, et cetera. I think we probably need to, we always need to come back to academics and probably bring more faculty on, which I can help with, and figure out how we tell that story. I know that just from a stats perspective, our most listened to podcasts are alumni interviews. And so I've got a few people waiting in the wings that we're ready to do one this month. And I was like, no. We're not going to do it this month. We'll come back to you in August or September. And so Maya will have a few of those lined up to do some alumni conversations, because those are always, really, really cool conversations to get perspective on someone who went through this system, went through as a student, and then now as a professional, and they can talk about that idea. And it allows them to kind of tell longer stories. And it also, I think, helps flesh out what academia becomes, right? Everyone's always wondering from a high school perspective, what is, environmental engineering? What is biomedical engineering? And to talk to someone who's like in the industry after they have that degree to add that perspective, I think is always pretty helpful.
Yeah, I agree. I think the alumni podcasts were definitely some of my favorite conversations I had, and they were like incredibly useful for me because as a current student, they were really engaging. And sometimes like when I'm interviewing my friends for the podcast, I kind of know what they're going to say because I'm also a current student and I know their perspectives. I've heard it from them a lot. But I just want to share it with the community. But with the alumni conversations, I genuinely am very like clueless. So they're a really fun place to be.
Cool. I did a count, 46 episodes.
Hey, okay.
Yeah, no, at first I had 47 and then there was something wrong with what I was looking at. But yeah, you have 47 episodes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think
I
that's a
couldn't have done
record.
it without the team.
I think that's a record.
How I feel like there's no way I did more
In
than
a single
Audrey did.
season? In a single
Oh.
season?
I don't know. Hard to say.
Audrey did 2 years. And so basically, Maya, you got to do 50 episodes a year, right? That's the new standard.
No.
We'll be putting out like 2 a week in the school year.
We were putting out 2 a week the first like few months
Yeah.
of the podcast because
Yeah,
we just had way too much content rolling in.
it was good. It was really good.
So,
I will use this opportunity to share a story that just happened last week. Technically, well, we're recording this out of order, but it was yesterday. We just wrapped up all of our admitted student events. And if there's people still listening, I don't know if you're still listening after you've been admitted and you're done, and you decided where you're going to go. But we've had a lot of people come up and be like, "Oh, are you on the podcast? Oh, like you're on the podcast." They come to me a lot. And I would whenever you were there, Emily, I was like, "Yeah, and there's Emily right over there." I'm like, "That's Emily. She's really on the podcast. Like that's her." Because it's weird. They think we're just, disconnected voices or that we're not actually real people. And yesterday, a dad came up to me and he says, "Oh my gosh, I just want to let you know, we listen to every episode of the podcast and
Wow.
we are so all in on this." And my wife, who's not here today, is like your guys' biggest fan. She loves all of it. The Admission Decisions podcast episode, she had listened to it a day or two after her son got admitted. And he told me, I hope I'm not speaking out of school on this, but he goes, and she just started crying. She started crying right in the middle, listening to the podcast. I was like, well, wow, we did talk about a lot of emotions on that podcast. It's definitely challenging. And she's like, she would die right now if she was here. Like what I was trying to point out to you, I'm like, yeah, there's Emily over there. She's right there. And so he's like, can you would you mind giving her like a shout out on them? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'll give her so we recorded a little video. I was like, I feel like I recorded my first cameo. But I held up his phone and said hi to her because she's in South Africa. And of course I'm blanking on her name. I know her son's name is Christian. Maybe it's Jill. I can't remember. Anyway, I wanted to make sure and shout out to her that she's listening in South Africa. I hope she's still listening. It is such a big deal to us when someone says, "Oh my gosh, we listen to the podcast," because I tell everybody, I'm like, it's so weird when we make these things, we record them. You guys do all the work on them. We put them up, and it's kind of like we metaphorically, it's like we throw them down the Grand Canyon, and we like hope someone's down there picking them up and listening to them. And every once in a while, when someone makes their way all the way up to us and says, "Oh my gosh, we listened to it," we're like, that is the coolest compliment, and we are so thankful, and we hope that this type of content is helpful to everybody. And when we get those ones and twos that come up to us and say something, it really makes a difference. And I hope that makes a difference to you guys. But we have some people that really, really like what we do, believe it or not. And so we like doing it regardless. So it's fun stuff for us to get on the mic and chat about some stuff. So we're really glad to do that.
Yeah,
so
it definitely does feel like you're shouting into the void sometimes. So it's nice to get those comments. And Maya and I hosted lunch yesterday. Yeah, and we got to do it together, which was really fun. And a lot of the students were like, "Oh yeah, I listened to the Viterbi Voices podcast," and
cool.
That was really cool too.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I think it's even more special when students say it, because I think they're going to be a little more shy about saying that they've actually listened to something. Like I think they'll quietly listen and then not tell you, but to actually admit it, I think is a big deal. So Emily, what is next? You got graduation in the next week or two. A lot of people don't know this, that classes wrap up the last week of April, and people are shocked that the schedule runs that way. And then finals are in the beginning of May. Commencement is May 13th, Friday, May 13th. So you got that booked on your calendar. And then Emily, what are your next steps? What's your plan? What's happening?
Yeah, so my plan is coming a little bit more into shape, but not entirely set yet. But first, I'll be working at a summer camp for people with disabilities in Colorado that I always work at.
This is the one you do all the time, right?
Yeah, this will be I've been doing it since I was in 8th grade. Okay. So long time. And then after that, I'll be going on a 2-month long trip to Europe. I'm going to be like doing a bunch of different stuff with my friends, doing the Tour de Mont Blanc. And yeah, I'm super excited.
What countries are you going to? Like, what's the order?
So I am starting in London, then I'm going to Croatia and doing a Croatia trip. Then to a Switzerland road trip that'll end in Chamonix and do like the Tour de Mont Blanc, which is like a 10-day trek around Mont Blanc. And that's in 3 countries. And then I'll probably be going to Amsterdam and then Iceland and then flying home.
Wow.
Yeah, I've never done a trip like this. So it's pretty crazy.
It is an incredibly cool and unique trip. I mean, there's a lot of people that spend time in Europe. I know a lot of students that after graduation, they go to Europe, and I've never heard the route you just gave out. That is an incredibly impressive and unique route.
Yeah, it's pretty much like, so the first month is with my friend who is super outdoorsy, and we are only doing outdoors things the entire month.
Got it.
And we're staying in London for like 3 days. So we're getting like 3 days of city, and then the rest of it is just like craziness. And then after that, my boyfriend will be joining us. And then we're going to do like a few days in Amsterdam and then just like explore Iceland, which again will be super outdoorsy, which I'm super excited to get that perspective of Europe because I haven't had it before.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then did you and then what the year is like is all the wilderness medicine, is that what it is? Or
Yeah, so I'm probably going to be moving to Bishop or Mammoth and either working as an EMT or ski patrol.
cool.
But yeah, something like that. It hasn't really been totally finalized yet, but probably will be in that area.
And then med school is after that.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Okay. And so what are the next steps for that? Applying.
Ugh.
I know
Yeah.
you don't want to talk about it.
We were talking about this yesterday.
No, yeah, it's just like such a long process. But yeah, right now I'm kind of in the stages of like really finalizing my personal statement and my extracurriculars. Because that's like really the chance you get to show the admissions committee like who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the end of May, I'm going to submit everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a general application to a bunch of different schools. And
Mm-hmm.
then later they're going to send out secondaries. And apparently most schools send out secondaries, and I have to answer like specific questions for those schools. And then after that is a bunch of interviews.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like a 9-month long process. So I'm getting ready.
I know you don't want to jinx it at all, but do you have like an idea of what type of school or what type of program you want to be headed toward?
I think that's like a part of my medical school journey. I like think I need to put a little bit more time into.
Yeah.
I think I do really like, I mean, I've talked about going to Bishop all the time. I do really long to go to a school in like Colorado or Utah or just like, yeah, just somewhere like, yeah, with climbing. I think that would really increase my quality of life. But also I'm very open. I think like wherever life takes me, I'm very open to, and I think I'll have fun regardless. So yeah, and I think like I've been kind of thinking about specialties, which is too far ahead, but wilderness medicine is definitely super interesting, and like anesthesia. I'm shadowing an anesthesiologist at USC soon. So I'm really looking forward to like looking into stuff like that more.
Well, that's great. That's really cool. Congratulations and on everything that you've accomplished, and best of luck in your future. I know that at one point we're definitely going to have you back on in your future, maybe while you're in med school, and to talk about where you are now. Maybe we'll have like a host roundup. We'll get all the old hosts together on a single episode.
So fun.
That does sound really fun
to see where everybody's at and what's going on, and bring back all the podcast memories and podcast conversations.
Yeah,
Maya, will you add
great.
that to the list? That'll be a good one.
I will absolutely. Actually, I had that idea the same time you were talking about it. It's like, that would be so cool to meet everyone.
Yeah, definitely. So Maya, your vision for the future of the podcast, your ideas, concrete, nebulous, whatever you think it is. What are you thinking about right now as you're starting to? I know we're way ahead of when you actually start working on it, but any thoughts you have on where you see the podcast going, or where you what do you want to do with the podcast?
Yeah, I'm thinking, I'd been thinking about this for a while, but a little bit of what we were talking about earlier about just like including more conversational, informal, just interviews where we're just hearing from someone about like whether what they're doing at an event or just like what's going on in their daily lives. I think it could be fun to have a little coffee chat series as well, just like shorter shorter little podcasts, just like highlighting a student. And yeah, still like also what you were saying about like looping to professors and to other people. So I'd like to, yeah, have some more conversational podcasts, and I think get the rest of the team excited about conversational podcasts as well. So one thing like I'm planning to do over the summer is just have everyone like share a podcast that you listen to that you like that's conversational, and then like hopefully at the beginning dissecting like what exactly makes this podcast good, like what makes us want to listen to this, and then maybe applying that to what we're doing ourselves.
I like the idea of like little coffee chats. That would be kind of cool. Like we could do one of our normal longer format, one every Sunday, and then like every Tuesday or Wednesday you put out a coffee chat, which is just to sit down with a single student to learn about them and where they're from. That is a really cool concept.
Yeah, I think some of my favorite podcasts too, like the actual episode recording will be a lot longer than what they actually publish. Sure. Yeah. I think some of our podcasts can get a pretty long.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool to release some of the stuff as like bonus content. Like here's a little story that we like couldn't get into. And you release it like midweek.
That's the hard part though, right? Like that's adding editing.
Yeah, it's adding editing, which is not fun.
Well, we'll see. Emily has a pretty well-oiled machine. Like I feel like everyone knows, at least the returning members, like really clearly what to do. So.
Yeah.
And I'd say from like surveys and stuff I've done to the team, people like editing.
Okay.
And people don't like it really depends on the person, but most people are fine with editing. And most people like I'll be like, you don't have to edit that much. Like it's totally fine. And they still like do a lot to like make it sound good. So I think they go above and beyond what's required of them.
Okay. All right. Cool. Good stuff. All right. Well, I mean, and what else? Anything else you guys want to talk about before we sign off for a little while?
I guess I just want to wish you guys both good luck. I'm excited. I hope I can like tune in sometimes and hear what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was just going to say, Emily, like just from watching you as a podcast host and just as a VSA and a person, like I'm very proud of all that you've done and very excited to hear what you'll do in the future.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, I just want to like for Maya, if you have any questions, like you can definitely send me a text whenever. Like I'm very open to like helping out in that way. Cause I know that was like kind of scary for me when I first started, but it was really nice having Audrey's support. So yeah, if you ever need to text me, go for it.
Yeah, I will for the podcast. I will for any wilderness recommendation, anything about climbing.
Yeah, we should end with a trip to Bishop now.
There you go. That's a good idea, is actually have not necessarily Bishop, but have like a podcast where like you're recording like on the road, like you're documenting like a weekend trip, where you're documenting like the weekend conference, like you're documenting the weekend ski trip, you're documenting whatever like your student organization is doing at some sort of thing. Like, okay, we're at the airport and it's just like this journey you take us on.
That would be cool, like a vlog.
Yeah, we need to get Maya, that's going to be one of the first things we need to do. We need to get mobile recording mics to plug into your phones. Like some really high quality mics that are tiny, that plug right into your phone, so you can do kind of like a quick, hey, how about this type situation.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I will write a list. That is exactly what I will do.
I need a shopping list from you, by the way. That's a whole separate conversation, but I need a shopping list from you of what we need. And speaking of which, that means that now that this is over, Emily, you got to get that mic to Maya and officially hand over the mic and the mic stand over to her.
Wow. Metaphorically and physically.
And physically, hand it all over.
We'll take a picture, document it. We'll see. Maybe it'll get thrown out on
No, that should be the cover photo of this episode.
All right.
Oh,
that sounds good. I've never been on the cover of a Viterbi Voices podcast.
Well, now you are. There you go.
Sometimes I think about that. I'm like, like I've never been on it, but I've been on every episode. I don't think you have either, Paul.
I have. The first episode. The very, very first episode.
Oh, but that was a very long time ago. Maybe we need to bring it back.
That was what, 7 years ago? 8 years ago now. Yeah, we've been doing this podcast a long time. This is 7 full years of this episode of this podcast.
Wow.
It doesn't
Congratulations,
feel like that at all.
Paul.
Yeah. It's incredibly easy to do when I don't do any of the work.
Well, I feel like you add this continuity and like the drive, like to get like new people involved and kind of inspire us to like take on this role that's kind of intimidating at first. So it's cool.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, overall, I mean, the coolest thing that I could ever do in my job, regardless of the podcast, is to sit here and watch what you guys can do and just add support and encouragement. And more often than not, what I found, Emily, you're not alone, and that most of you think you can't do it. And it's like, no, you can do this. Yeah, it's like, and sometimes it's a hesitancy to add more work to your plate, which I totally understand. But I always want to say, like, we just do this much more, and look at all these things that we can do. And Emily, you're proof of that. Going back to our conversation when I got really worried you weren't going to take this job, I was like, I gotta figure out how to get you to do this, because I knew it'd be great. And Maya, you are going to be amazing as well, and I am excited to see where this goes. And considering that you're a sophomore, we got lots of time. We got lots of time to see what we can do with the podcast. The only thing I will say is because Emily just put new music to the podcast, I don't know whether we'll do new music again for the year. Maybe we'll keep that continuous for at least the next couple of years, but we'll see what we need to do. We definitely need to record some new intros and make it all fresh and stuff. And, Maya, we'll talk about separately when we want to come back with the podcast. At some point over the summer, we will return. We just have to give you a little bit of a break. Everybody needs a little bit of downtime, but we do need to come back at some point over the summer. So if you stayed with us this long through this episode, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. This will be the final episode of season 7. When we come back, it will be a whole fresh new world, with Maya as the co-host, and we'll see where we take it. We'll see you sometime over the summer. I hope you all enjoy everything that you're doing this summer. For all of our new students, welcome and congratulations. Enjoy orientation. If you haven't signed up for orientation, make sure you do so now. New student orientation is where you sign up for your classes, you register, you meet with advisors, and then you understand kind of what your next steps are here at the university. And we'll see you all when you move in August. Emily, we won't see you again. So thank you so much for everything you've done. Once again, we really appreciate it. Congratulations on all of your achievements. And I will personally see you guys at commencement, and that will be fun to see you there.
Oh, thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye, everyone.